Today I'm with Claudia, who lives in Sydney, Australia, and is from Italy and has lived in the UK. So Australia isn't even your first move internationally. But thank you so much for being with me today, Claudia.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. And I'm delighted that you're here with me today because what I'm inviting you to share is your love story that has you be in Australia. I think it's something really exciting to share. And it's my podcast's true love story. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wonder where we start in the in the telling of this in the telling of this story. I wonder whether we start at the beginning, the middle, or the end. I think let's start with the end. Let's start with, where you are now, what you do, and what life looks like for you in Australia.
Yes. So I'm at the moment I am a yoga and Pilates instructor, and I'm enjoying my life in here in Australia. I am a mom of Sky. Sky, she's almost 2.5, keeping me very, very busy. And yes, life is beautiful, totally different career. But yeah, I still working with people. I still help people. And that is what I always done in my life and is what I love to do.
Mm.
So yes, I'm very happy.
Like every beautiful story that we read, you know, we get to the end of the story, and well, yours is really the beginning. Living in Australia is truly the beginning of the rest of your life. But in the sense of the story we're going to look at today, that is the kind of the end piece, and you can make it look like it's really easy to have achieved because you have everything you want. You have the life in Australia, you have your daughter, and you have the elusive partner that you haven't mentioned yet. Um, and but it didn't come easily. So
No.
I want to explore a little bit with you how you determined that it was the right move and the challenges you faced to make it happen. Um, and I have a question that's kind of separate. Did you ever daydream or anticipate that you might end up living in Australia? Was that ever something you craved, or did it really come about as a result of meeting your partner?
Funny that you ask because when I decided to move to Australia, obviously my parents were a little bit like, "Oh no, it's gonna be so far." My mom was very worried because she hasn't, she didn't know this man, and I couldn't really introduce him to my family because he was in Australia when I decided to move. And my mom reminded me that when I was a little girl, I was playing with Barbie, and even at the time, I was like, say, because maybe there was some cartoon I was watching, so I say, I'm living in Australia, but as a little girl, like, I don't know how I was coming out with these things, but who knows? Maybe it was fate, you know. And it was
Mm,
funny, and my mom reminded me that when I decided to move, I say, since you were a little girl, you were talking about Australia. So I always say in my mind, I say, who knows? Maybe it
mm.
was fate, you know?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny. And how did you meet your partner? I mean, you've lived in Italy, UK, and now Australia. So where did you actually meet?
Right. So we just celebrate 8 year anniversary last Saturday, so the 25th of May. It was the 25th of May 2016. I was boarding a plane as a cabin service manager from Singapore back to London. And he walked on board and he gave me his passport and his boarding pass. And I look at him, he looked at me, and immediately I felt something in my heart. And I remember I was boarding the plane with a colleague, with another cabin crew, and I say to her, "Can you please just keep boarding?" And she was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I just need a second." And I remember turn a little bit away from the door, and I had a pen in my jacket. I took the pen out and I brought 46 echo, which is what is his number. And I say to my crew member, I was like, I will get to know this man. And then obviously it was an extremely busy flight. I had to cover for a cabin crew that was we left behind unwell. So I usually don't do the safety demo, but I had to jump in and do the safety demo, and my position was right in front of where he was sitting, and he embarrassed me all the way through the safety demo. I was so red, and I was like shaking and truly embarrassed, and he kept just looking at me and giving this big smile. And when I finished the safety demo, I was like, oh my God. I really felt something really strong for this man. And obviously, busy flight, didn't have much time to talk. Then he came to have a quick conversation with me in the galley. And then we found out that we were quite living nearby in London. And then we decided, to see each other again after the flight. And that happened 2 days after the flight. We went on our first date. Yeah.
Lovely. And so I suppose when you got started in your relationship, it looked relatively easy in the sense that you're both in London, you're exploring what's possible, you're dating, you're going out, and you wouldn't have at that point been worrying about different countries and things like that, because I imagine in your mind, you just thought you both lived in the UK. So, is that how it started? Like in a kind of like easygoing, or was it all
No,
no?
no, no. There was a drama since the first date. So I remember when I go home from the trip, I called my best friend and I was like, oh my God, I met this guy. He's Australian, he lives in London. My best friend, oh no, recipe for disaster. Anyway, then we met on a date, and he was super honest on the first few discussions that we did on the first date. He was like, look, I am Australian and I've been living in London for over 16 years, and the time has come for me to go back home in Australia, and I've got my trip book in a few months. And I was like, oh, really? So I act very cool because obviously it was our first date. So I was like, fine, we're just gonna have some fun then for the summer, and then you go to Australia and I carry on with my life. But that was my plan. And my best friend knows me very well, and she was like, this is not gonna end very well. You're gonna fall in love and blah blah blah. And she was right.
Given you were cabin crew flight attendant, this must really have potentially helped you because you've got him on the other side of the world and you in the UK, and at least there's the option for you to try and fly out to Sydney. I remember that's how I met you. You and I were both
Yeah.
cabin crew on a flight to Sydney, and you were going to see him on that particular trip. So I imagine at least being cabin crew helped in the initial stages of your relationship.
Oh, yes, definitely. I was very lucky to get a few trips throughout this year that we were apart. Um, and he was honest since the beginning when we met. He told me that he was going to come back to Australia and he would not have come back to Europe for quite a while. So yeah, I had all the movement from Europe to Sydney. That was, to do all the trips to meet him was basically just me doing it through
Mm,
work or through holiday. And in the 4 years that we were apart, I did 3 big holiday in Australia just to come and see him, and then a lot of trips that I obviously was lucky enough to get through work. Yeah, so
mm.
it was challenge, and yeah, we we obviously we had a few moments where he got cold on me, and as a woman you feel straight away there was something not right, and as a man, as soon as I raised the issue, um after the big holiday we've done together, it was like, right, we have to stop this relationship. It's impossible. We are far away. Everyone need to, I'm not coming back to England. You need to carry on your life. I need to carry on with my life. And we decided to, a couple of times we decided just to stop talking. And I think the first time we decided was after the big holiday that we have done, like February after we met. And yeah, he decided in April that we needed to stop. And we stopped talking for about a week, and then he was the one contacting me after a week. So we broke the silence and we start again our, conversation. And in order just to be able to talk, we had to, it was very hard with the time difference. So my day his night, my night his day. So we always made some time, even if it was just 30 minutes phone call, mainly phone call, hardly because we were very busy and it was very hard to do FaceTime. So mainly just WhatsApp call and messages, thousands of messages. And yeah, so it was quite challenge. So the first time that we decided to break, he broke the silence, and then we start talking again. And then after a few months, that happened again, and that was me after a few days to say, "Come on, this is stupid. We have to keep trying." And he was always okay to keep trying.
Mm. And the underlying current must have been, given he was very honest and clear with you that he had made his decision to return to Australia, was back in Australia, and didn't wish to move. Were you aware that at some point, or were you both always exploring the future from at some point, I, Claudia, need to make the move to Australia? Or did neither of you really broach that? You just kept going with a long distance relationship?
Yeah, good question. Actually, he kind of like told me maybe like a year ago, things that he never actually told me about what he was thinking, and there was a bit of fear among both of us, because obviously he knew that I had a brilliant career in the UK. I had all my friends and my family just an hour away, from London, and he did not want to be the one asking me to give up everything. And also he knew how much I love my life in London. And in a few time I was like, he kind of mentioned perhaps the option, because I was like, so what is are my option if I decide to come to Australia? And it was like, oh, the only option that you have is to come as a student. And I was like, no way, I'm not gonna come to Australia to be a student when I did so many here, and I managed to have a brilliant career here in Sydney, in London. I'm not going to move to Sydney to be a student. And I was like quite firm with this decision. I was like, why don't you just come back? That you don't really have much in there. And it was like, no, I'm not coming back. I want to be here. I want to find a full-time job. I want to buy a flat. And that is what I want to do. So there was really some firm things in our mind. I didn't really want to become a student. And in my heart, I was like, right, it's not really helping me out in a way. It's just say come. And I kind of look a few courses I could have done in there, but I was like, I don't want to go back and study things that I don't really feel in my heart in order to get a
Mm.
visa. So for a while we were okay, let's just keep seeing each other on holidays, so during the flight, and keep this relationship as a long distance and see what happens. So we left for quite a while like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then but surely you must have been aware that somehow or something has to give, something has to enable you to be together. So were you starting to consider the different ways that you could go to Australia, or you were both literally just because I recall in our flight that you didn't say too much about it other than you were really looking forward to seeing him. But I think there was always the question of, is this going to work? maybe
Yeah.
that question was a bigger question for a while than how do I make it happen to go to Australia? Maybe the first question was, can this work? So how did you
Yeah.
resolve that first question? Because obviously the answer was going to be moving to Australia.
For some reason, I think love, I just always knew that I always give 100% of this relationship, even when we were, far apart. I just knew that there was something that was worth to wait for.
Mm,
And I don't know, I just naturally I was kind of happy to wait was going to happen, but on the side I was looking for options. So as I say,
mm,
I was looking for courses to do, and we even, funny enough, we even discussed because he was sending me some information of job the Australia needed. Funny enough, there was a job that there was a locksmith, and as I kept making a joke, I was like, why don't you come to Australia and becoming a locksmith? And I was like, I don't want to come to Australia becoming a locksmith. But obviously there was researches that, there's been some researches that I was doing in order to find out what kind of possibility there were there for me. But for some reason, I really didn't want it to be a student.
mm,
So I kind of like, for the moment, we're just gonna keep seeing each other, on holiday, and we were, exclusive. So I was not looking for anyone else. He was not looking for anyone else, and it just time day by day, we're passing, we're talking. When we were planning holidays, we were planning things to do. Me to travel to Australia and again. So it was always something exciting, waiting for the roster to come out and see Singapore Sydney. That was my best ever day when I was seeing my Singapore Sydney there. So yeah, it was, it's been a very hard decision, and like, and planning and thinking of what if I move into Australia. But I was like, I didn't really want to change straight away my life
mm,
like that. So I just was
mm,
just maybe waiting in my heart for him to do something, or to ask me,
mm,
to ask me clearly, would you like to come to Australia? Because he never actually did ask me at this
mm,
point. So it was
mm,
just like, oh, let's see what happened. And
mm.
as I say, we were joking about possibility of jobs I could have done or courses, but nothing was really serious. And yeah.
Yeah. So how many years were you toing and froing with you doing flights from Singapore into Sydney, um, and having less than 24 hours in Sydney to be with him and then returning? How long did that go on for? Did you say 4 years?
About three and a
Mm,
half, something like that. Yes.
mm.
Yeah.
So,
Thinking when I moved. Yeah.
so what started to interrupt? What was the catalyst for things to,
So
because for this to not be how
to
going on? Yeah.
so everything happened for a reason, they say. So and it's coming up again, my anniversary of my terrible illness. So on the 5th of June, 2018, I felt very, very sick, and I was admitted in hospital in very critical condition. And I contracted bacterial meningitis. So I was extremely sick, and many, many, weeks in hospital. And he was the only the last person that obviously I spoke before falling in this semi coma, where I obviously couldn't talk or couldn't contact any member of the family. We were on the phone like usually. It was my early morning and his night, and he was through my whole agony before I managed to call the ambulance. He was on the phone with me. Anyway, and then I managed to call the ambulance. I was admitted to hospital. Couldn't really talk anymore because I was in this semi coma for a few days. And he was amazing without talking Italian. He was not, he's not able to speak my language, but through Facebook, he contacted my family, and he was the first person telling my sister and my brother that I was seriously sick and I was taken to hospital. And basically since that day that I was admitted to hospital until I left the hospital, he played an amazing part for my family by translating documents, by talking to the hospital. And yeah, he never made the trip back to see me when I was very sick. But he was always there talking to my sister. My sister in Italy, she did not really realize the time difference in Australia. So she kept texting and calling him at all sorts of time, and he was always there to pick up the phone to talk about my condition and to help my family with translation.
Mm. And so that really was his way of, that was how he got to know your family. He didn't know your family prior to this.
No, obviously I got to know about this long WhatsApp messages and WhatsApp group that Esa created with my sister, my brother, and my Italian friend, and they were like just discussing. And yes, Esa spoke to my brother and sister for the first time, just because I was very sick. And yeah, it was quite a funny messages looking back, emotional but funny because obviously they were using Google Translator, and as you know, Google Translator does not translate very well, but for thank God that they managed to understand each other. And yeah, my sister used to write so many messages to him, and he was like translating with Google Translator, and same my sister, and sending some reply, and they had to kind of like trying to understand, but they managed. Yeah, and they communicated for about a month or so.
Mm.
Yeah.
And given you were very ill and didn't know all this detail in the background, you know, you wouldn't have known what a in tremendous support he was serving to your family. And you mentioned that he didn't come over. So did you read into that? Did you kind of go, well, hang on a minute, I go there for holidays, I make trips, and I'm dying because at one point, you were really
Yeah,
seriously ill.
yeah.
Were you upset that he didn't come over, or were you how was that? Because you didn't have the awareness that you're sharing here now. You didn't know everything
No,
about the family support he was providing.
no, I was told about this WhatsApp group message quite toward the end when I was about to leave the hospital. And a big, that my sister play a big figure on this whole. I had a lot of doubt, and when I start feeling a little bit better, I start talking to my sister, and I was like, I'm quite upset because I did a lot for Esa, like I did holiday and try to make always a big effort to meet him. And the only time I really need him to be here, he didn't come. He never made it to Italy to see me, to Italy, to England to see me. And then my sister said, I always remember, she was like, look, if it was not for Heather, we could, we wouldn't know where you were. He played a big role on this whole situation. He answered my phone calls, my messages every time of the day, and he was like, "Can we create a WhatsApp message?" And he say, "I'm gonna head you to the group so you can actually, see what's." So he shows me all these messages, and then she had me through, so I couldn't see the message, but she showed me everything, and then I start receiving a few after when I was joined the group. But it was very emotional to realize what Heather has done for me, and I did not have an idea that happened. So my sister showed me all these messages, and it was like, he helped us so much. Yet I accept this, but in my heart, I had these things. Okay, he helped from far away, but still, I almost died, and he never made it to see me. But I kind of like put it down into my heart, and after when I start feeling better as well, is kind of asked me, and I say, would you come to Australia and live with me and see if this relationship can, go further and go on? And I was like, wow, he actually asked me. And I remember talking to my sister, and I was like, he asked me, but I don't know what to do now because I've got this massive doubt in my heart that he didn't come to see me. So am I going to change all my life for this man that is in Australia? Yes, he helped you guys, but he didn't come to see me when I needed the most. So it was extremely hard for me to say yes to Heza, and I will remember until I will leave the things that really made me decide to come to Australia is my sister. I might get emotional, but I'm okay. And my sister was next to my bed in the hospital, and she was like, "Look, Claudia, you had a return ticket from the train of your life, and you have to basically take this chance and go to Australia and see what the future reserves for me with this man, because the train only passes once in your life."
Mm.
Yeah. So I decided to accept as a offer to come to Australia. So I say, yes, I'm gonna come to Australia. And I start planning my kind of like planning what to do, because obviously I had to recover at home for a few weeks after I left the hospital.
Mm.
And I had a lot of time to think when I was in Italy with my mom and dad. And yeah, so I had to plan quite a lot in my life, because I had to plan to say goodbye to a lot of things and people.
Yes, indeed. And so, and that must have been quite challenging because UK was already your first move. You'd already moved from Italy and created a life for yourself. And I know you loved that life. You were a cabin crew manager. You were a wonderful cabin crew manager,
Thank you.
and you had a beautiful life in Richmond, in Lon near London,
Yes,
and so you'd really carved out quite a special life already. But now you did have him doing what you actually wanted. You wanted him to
yeah.
ask you, and then
Ask
he
me.
did, and he did ask you, and maybe it
Yeah,
took, this return ticket on the train of life for him to really dig deep and ask the real question. So, and then you started to say goodbye to your family and so on. So it must have been a very difficult time. But at least you had something
yeah,
very powerful to look forward to. Or were you more nervous
yes.
than anything else? Or were you now how are you feeling in this time of saying goodbye but creating your future?
I was extremely doubtful. I knew there was the right things to do in my heart. I was doing action to plan to leave England, and I was like, that's it, that's what I need to do. But inside of me, I had a lot of doubts, and a lot of sleepless nights, because obviously it's a huge decision. And the company, the airline that I was working for, due to the, like nearly to that experience I had, they were extremely generous to give me 3 years sabbatical. And my manager was like, we don't usually do this for cabin crew, but giving to your experience that you had, your sickness, we're going to give you 3 years. You come back, you have your job if the things in Australia don't go well. So I was like, okay, so the company is backing me up. My sister, my mom and my dad, they were like, oh my God, you say to us you were going to England for 6 months, and then you stay for 22 years. And now you're gonna tell us you're going to Australia with a man that we have not met. So there is a funny story that my mom told me that she was like, oh my God, we are gonna receive a call of someone finding you cutting pieces in a luggage. So she had this crazy thought about I was going to come to to live with this man that was going to be a murder. And I was like, because they didn't have a clue of who was him. They never met him. They just see some picture, and I showed them maybe like in a FaceTime, and they were like, "Hello, hello," no English at all. So it was quite awkward. But I had a lot of doubt, a lot of people to say goodbye. But down deep in my heart, I knew that that was the right things to do. So I
Mm.
kind of like follow my heart and keep this doubt deep inside of me. And as I always knew that I wanted to be a yoga teacher, and I was very passionate about yoga. So he kind of like suggested, say, why don't you stop in India on your way to Australia and you do your 200-hour yoga teacher training? So when you arrive to Australia, you can teach yoga. So that was another thing that I considered. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. Yeah.
So you went to India.
So I went to India, and another thing that always made me think, my grandma, which is happily in heaven, she passed away many moon ago, and I was 18 when she passed away. So, and when I was born, she at the time they in Italy they used to do this kind of like they used to put some money in the bank. That with years they were growing and growing. And the year I decided to leave Australia, to live in England and Italy, to come to Australia, was the year that I had to cash the check that my grandma has left me since I was born. And the money I cashed was the exactly money that the Indian course cost me. So it was like, that's it. I've got the money. Grandma has left me this money, and I will use it for my Indian course. And it was perfect. Like something like wow, it couldn't have been more perfect than that. So yes, I traveled to India. I spent a month in India, and I got my certificate for Vinyasa yoga teacher. And then that was a very challenging month in India. We did a lot of philosophy and early morning, late evening, a lot of practice, a lot of body and mind, not just physical, but mind challenges. And this doubt that I had in my heart, they really start to coming out. And I had the chance to talk to many girls that they were taking part to my course, and sometimes you offload your doubt easily with someone that you don't know. And that is what was happening to me during my India trip. I had a lot of strangers, and in this spiritual environment, all this doubt and things that were really hitting me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm about to go to Australia in about 3-4 weeks to live with this man that I never lived with. And he didn't come to see me when I was sick. That things was still in there. So what I'm doing? And fun enough, during one morning, we were always doing some philosophy talk. And that particular morning, I didn't really want to go to the philosophy lesson. But then I couldn't sleep, and I said, I'm just going to go. And with really not spiritual attitude, I sat down in this classroom, and this yoga teacher start talking about something that really really clicked. Something clicked in my mind. I was like, wow. So this, I'm telling you what was the philosophy talk. So I had this doubt. Obviously, he didn't come to see me in hospital and when I was sick, and it really made me upset. So this philosophy talk was crazy. So this teacher started talking about his experience of being the strongest figure to a family. Obviously, he lost his best friend, and due to certain reason, he couldn't make it to the funeral. He couldn't make it to see and say the goodbye to his best friend for the last time, and he was extremely upset. But what he was saying to us, what he realized by keeping his distance and not being involved with the emotion of the family that just lost this young child, he was able to help the family with the funeral arrangement, with many, many things that the family were unable to do because they were too much involved with emotion and with the loss. And while he was describing this situation that he had experienced in his past, something really hit me strong. It was like, wow, this is exactly what Cesar has done for me. He didn't come to see me, but he was helping my family with so many things. So I was like, that is exactly what Cesar has done. And this teacher kept talking and talking about, like acceptance. And I was like, that's it. And I start crying. Literally, I start crying, and I left the room, and I ran into my room, and I got my phone, and I remember calling Asa, bursting into tears, and just telling him, I accept now, I accept what you've done. I forgive you the fact that you didn't come to see me, and I'm now ready to make this trip to Australia because now I know it's the right things I will do, and it's the right things to do for for my life. So it was the
Wow.
particular, yeah, it's mind blowing. Was the right time to listen to this philosophy talk that I didn't want to take part, and there was the most important philosophy talk that really made me remove this huge, huge brick from my heart and just say to her that I forgive you. I now know what you have done. Yeah.
Wow. And then how was it from that point onwards? Because now something is settled in you, something is at peace.
Yeah, I was like, that's it. From the moment, I was like so looking forward to come to Australia, and I was like talking, like, wait, I can't wait. And he was describing me the place where he was living. I was like, wow, near the sea, and everyone was actually like envying me. I was like, wow, you're gonna go to Australia near the beach, and I was like, that's like a dream with the man that you love. So yes, I arrived in Australia 1st of October 2019, and we didn't right away start the process of the visas because we never lived together. So Heather suggested to take 3 months of trial. Um, it was like let's try for 3 months, and if the things don't work, you can go back to England to do, to keep working for the airline. And I will, settle down in here and, carry on with my life. So we call it the 3 months of probation. So, and it was crazy because without knowing what the future was going to give us, after not even 2 months I arrived in Australia, the first few cases of COVID start happening. And that was Christmas, and we could see all these terrible images and news from Europe. And Ezra was like, maybe it's going to arrive in Australia. And obviously, COVID for the first few cases start arriving. And then before you know, everything was shut down, and like we could not fly. There was a plan to meet my family in May here. My sister was going to get married. Everything was cancelled. The world shut down, and I found myself in in lockdown with this man that I just really didn't live with it with. And we right away we had to live together and really couldn't leave our place where we were living. We could have gone to the beach, but obviously it was quite restricted the things we could have done. So it was like kind of crazy. Couldn't find a job because obviously I was to start. I was still on a visitor visa, so no jobs. Everything was shutting down. The job I've done for many years, the airline all shut down. So there was also another option that I could not even consider. So it was kind of hard. And after the 3 months, we decided to take the probation time. We realized it was okay. We were getting on despite the lockdown and everything. We love each other. So we start the process of the partner visa.
Mm, very good. So it was
Yeah.
fortuitous that all this happened prior to the lockdown.
Yes,
Otherwise you would have been locked apart.
yes. It was just like the right time to arrive. Let's say if I had delayed a couple of months, I would never. We talk about this, and we both say that maybe if I didn't make it, before COVID, maybe we'll never be together
Mm,
because 3 years apart, not seeing each other would have been extremely challenging. And then
mm,
not even know, you didn't
mm.
know what was going to happen. So
Yes,
yeah,
the unknowingness part, yes.
yeah.
But
So
fortunately you had made the move and
yes,
and now, yes, so you started creating a happily ever after. And
yes,
it is something that really is quite remarkable. And Ezra has actually played a really powerful part because, in the familial piece, and then it was his idea to suggest India. So
yes,
so there's quite a few fortunate things that empowered the move from the sound of it.
yes. I always make a joke to him. I say, I had to almost die for you to ask the question to come to Australia, but at least I didn't die. You asked the question, and obviously, we here happy together with Kai, a little daughter, and we love life is good, and all what I could say to people that they are in doubt of what to do. What I've done, I really listened to my heart, and I just persevere on this crazy. My best friends and family, they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, and apart my sister, that she always supported me, but everyone was like, "What are you doing? Leaving everything behind for a man that you don't really know very well, you don't know what to do in Australia." But I just deep down know that that was the things I needed to do,
Mm,
and I just follow my heart.
mm,
So if there is someone that is listening to my story that has got any doubt of about moving and moving to live with a partner, all what I could say, if you feel deep down into your heart that you love this person and you want to be with him or with her, just follow the heart. I think the heart always will lead to the right path. Obviously you will have to you know like there will be challenges, and it's not easy to to create a new life in a new country, but if there is a will, there is a way.
mm. Yeah. Well, you certainly found your way,
Yeah.
and I'm really pleased for you. I'm really happy that you did that. I could tell on that aircraft when I met you that it was what you wanted,
Oh,
but I know you
yes.
wanted to hear it from him.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yes.
and that
Yeah.
was the missing link. So
Yes.
and you did hear it from him, and you overcame your own doubts. So
Yeah.
it is very inspiring. And yeah, And now you love, and you are fulfilling so many other things that you wanted. How do you enjoy being a yoga and Pilates teacher?
Oh, I love it. I really love it. And my class, they, my regular student, they call me Team Claudia because, they love to come to my classes, and I just love to help people. And during my yoga classes, I share experience in my life, and I touch a lot of heart. And people after the class, they come and say they were so inspirational, and I just be, I'm myself. I'm be real, and I share the experience in my life. I share my emotions, and I think that is very important when you do a job like I do, where you have to help, like help
Mm,
people mentally, and yeah,
mm,
and physically as well. So
mm,
I just love it. I just really love to be able to play a big part in someone's life.
mm.
Yeah.
And was being a mother always important to you? Is that something that you'd always wanted, and that, because obviously, um, if you had been delayed by COVID and so on, it seems so fortunate that everything played out the way it played out, because you are now a mother of a beautiful little girl, and so,
Yeah.
were you always wanting to be a mother, or you?
God, no. No, no. I literally, until I was 40, I did not really want it, babies. And then obviously meeting Azer, and I just, something again clicked in me after meeting him and falling in love for him. I was like, I think I'm ready to maybe to have a baby. And we discussed, and we we did pro and cons, and we both were funny, having a baby or not having a baby, and we both felt that having a baby was the right thing to do. So yeah, we try, and obviously Sky came to in our life, and it's the most challenging but rewarding things that happen in my life. But
Mm,
I will. Her name Sky was given to her because obviously when we didn't know what we were going to have. We had a surprise baby, and but I we for some reason we had the girl's name ready. The boy's name was not ready. And when we were deciding which name to give it to her, to the baby, if it was a girl, I was like, oh, I really would like to find a name that has something to do with the sky when we met. And I was like trying to find some name, and then he was like, why don't we just call her Sky? And there was Asa giving, and I was like, yes. So that was 100% sure the name of our baby because of the things that we experienced,
mm,
and something, yeah, the sky is what
mm.
brought us together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ah, that's very beautiful. Well, I really thank you for sharing your beautiful story with everybody. Thank you very much. It's lovely to reunite with you, and thank you for being, just sharing it here with us. Thank you.
Like, thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.